Hello and welcome to Gray and Crochet. My name is Mads and in this video I am going to be reviewing the Moda Vera Blankie yarn. Now this yarn is one of the only blanket yarns that you can find at our local Spotlight, which is pretty much our largest yarn store here. If you're in America, it will be similar to Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby. Basically a big craft store with lots of different crafting items, including yarn, which is one of my favorite things to shop for. And Moda Vera Blankie yarn is one of the only blanket yarns available to us, unfortunately. You can buy American yarns through some other websites. There's no physical shops close to me, but I have seen the Bernette Blanket or the Parfait Chunky yarns available online for a very similar retail price, sometimes a little bit more expensive, but this bad boy is about $18 for 300 grams. This is a partially used skein, but it usually is a little bit bigger. This is about half, I would say. So $18 for 300 grams sounds quite expensive, but unfortunately that is pretty much the standard for blanket yarn in Australia. If you were to buy it in a different brand, it works out pretty much the same or slightly more expensive. At Spotlight, this comes in 10 different colors, so not a great variety, unfortunately. Some of the American brands do have a lot more color. All of the colors that come in this one are solid colors, there's no variegated. So you're very limited in what you can actually make with this. If they have the color that you want, that is great. But you know, if they don't, then you probably will just have to take a gamble with millens. But this is quite a good yarn to crochet with. It is very filled out compared to some of the other mill-end blanket yarns that I have worked with. It is very full, very soft. You don't actually feel the inner thread in there at all when you crochet. I used half of this skein and only found one knot, which I say only because I have worked with other yarns where I found lots more knots, but it is a bit disappointing that in a 300 gram skein of a thick chunky wet yarn, so even though 300 grams sounds like a lot, there isn't actually that much yarn in there that I would find a knot so quickly to make basically this project, which I paired with some blanket yarn. So this has already been washed and it does not look any different at all. It is still quite soft, quite fluffy. I did use a 10mm hook for this. The recommended hook on the ball band or the website is 8mm. So I did go up slightly just to make it a little bit more of a holey fabric and not as dense because blanket yarn is quite thick. But what I have noticed, and hopefully you can pick that up on camera, it is a little bit difficult to show you black, but the white bits sort of span out a little bit to the side compared to the black bits. I've used the same hook, so that just means that the white Moda Vera yarn is a little bit thicker than the blanket yarn that I did use. But what I'm going to do now is I'm quickly going to change my camera view and I'm going to show you 3 different types of blanket yarn. So the Moda Vera, this mill end that I used in this scarf, and also a bit of scrap that I actually used to crochet this blanket behind me. So I will see you in a second. So we are going to compare 3 different types of blanket yarn. The white one here is the Moda Vera Blankie yarn, and both of these are millens. It is quite difficult to identify millens, so I don't really know what the black one is, but I am assuming that this blue one here, which is actually the same yarn as you saw in the blanket behind me in the previous clip, is, I believe, Bernette baby blanket yarn. The colorway looks very similar to what they have in that range, so I'm just going to assume that this is Bernette blanket. This is Moda Vera, and then this is just a random millens. The texture of all 3 are slightly different, even though they might look similar on camera. This one's actually the thickest, and then this is like medium-ish, and then this one is a little bit thinner. But I'm pretty sure they are classified as the same weight of yarn, they just look different. This Moda Vera yarn is a lot more filled out. You don't really see the inner thread there, and you don't really feel it either when you're crocheting with it unless you really squish down, and then you can feel the little core in the middle. But it is quite a pleasant experience crocheting with this because it is so soft. It doesn't really shed at all. This is a little end bit. If I pull on it, nothing falls off it, and I'm pulling on it quite hard and nothing comes off it. It is quite good and quite filled out. This one is just a little bit less filled out. When you crochet with it, you do slightly feel the inner thread. It isn't as fluffy as the Moda Vera, Hopefully you guys can see the difference on camera. This looks a little bit more flat compared to the Moda Vera. From all angles, the Moda Vera yarn looks quite fluffy, and this Benet blanket yarn, depending on how you turn it, it looks a little bit thinner or a little bit more filled out. This is not a bad experience crocheting with either, because you don't feel the inner thread too much as you crochet with it. In comparison though, this one is quite a bit of a nightmare to work with. I mean, you are paying for millions, so you know, you never really know what you get, and it is, if you buy it on sale, a lot cheaper than a full price blanket yarn. So if you're okay with dealing with that, then that, you know, will save you a bit of money there. But I'm gonna try my best to show you. It is very difficult to see black, but do you see the inner thread sort of catching the light there, running through the center? So this one isn't as filled out as the other two, and it's sort of like you can see the thread and then the fluffy bits are on either side. So as you crochet with it, you do actually feel that bit of graininess running through your fingers, and with extensive crochet it does feel quite painful if you've got sensitive hands. Definitely not as pleasant of a crochet experience as the other two, and a little bit thinner as well because it isn't quite fluffed out. I did notice that this one does rip out a little bit, so you can see the little bit of the end coming out there, and I'm just like pulling quite hard, similar to how I did with the Moda Vera, and it is shedding a little bit. But yeah, this one doesn't seem to shed too much, and neither does the Moda Vera. So 3 different thicknesses, 3 different blanket yarns, all classified as bulky weight, I'm pretty sure. But yes, you definitely pay what you get for with the Moda Vera. It is the softest blanket yarn that I have felt personally working with Millens, and then obviously buying this one in its regular skein. Hopefully that little comparison gave you an idea of how good of a yarn the Moda Vera blanket yarn is. In my experience, this is the best blanket yarn that I have worked with. It is so soft, and I also did love the size of skein that this came in. These come in 300 grams skeins, which I think is excellent when you're working with such a thick yarn. Smaller size skeins might not stretch that much. You may need multiple of, like, let's say 100 gram skeins to make one project. I would have had to do that if I used 100 gram skeins to make this one. I would have needed at least 2 skeins, but this 300 gram skein was excellent. It means I could use the same dye lot with hopefully not as many knots, even though I did find one in this one, to complete your project, which is great. The color choice though is a little bit of a disappointment. I don't think 10 colors is enough given the lack of variety already in Australia. If you're a person who likes to make amigurumi out of blanket yarn, you're really gonna struggle to work with the colors here because it isn't that big of a variety. You are very limited in the kinds of plushies you can make and would have to gamble with millions. So I do really hope that they come out with more colors, maybe some variegated colors as well. I think that would be really fun to work with. But apart from that, I do think it is a great yarn, and I hope you think so as well. If you have tried it, please let me know in the comments below what your thoughts were. But yeah, if not, please leave me a thumbs up if you did like this video, and you can check out another Moda Vera yarn review over here. I will see you there.